Hello and welcome back to another episode of Walk in Christ podcast, the show where we inspire the masses to become financially free while building God's kingdom. On the podcast today, we have Ms.Brandyn Rodriguez. Ms.Brandyn Rodriguez is the owner of the Positive B community, a community that discusses and strategizes to get rid of debt. On the podcast today, we'll be discussing how Ms.Brandyn was able to pay off $137,000 in 59 months. So thank you for being here, Ms.Brandyn.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm on vacation this week, so just hanging out with family in preparation of Thanksgiving, but all is good. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. So what led you to start the process of wanting to get rid of debt?
Well, I started the process. It was a very long process, I would say, but my first introduction of it was in 2010. I took Financial Peace University with Dave Ramsey through my church. So that's when my eyes were open to like, oh, you should pay off debt. So at that time I was a single mom. I said, okay, well, I'll take the class and start the process, cut up my credit cards, and work on it, do as much as I can. But life happened and I started using credit cards again, didn't get very far during that journey. Fast forward about 4 or 5 years later, I get married. My husband and I have our second daughter. We sold a house, bought a house, did lots of things within an 18-month time frame. And as we combined finances and looked at, all of our bills, all of the debt, it was like, man, we have a lot of debt. And yes, we could afford those minimum payments, but why should we keep sending out $2,000 a month towards car payments and student loans and credit cards, whatever it may be. So I told him about, Financial Peace University. I went through this process. Do you think we can do it? And he said, all right, let's do it. So we put together our plan. We followed the debt snowball. But it was really looking at all the debt we had, all the interest we were paying on everything. And then our daughters were like the catalyst of, okay, let's pay off our debt. We don't want our daughters to have to be held back for anything just because we have debt. Like, oh, we can't do that because we have a car payment. Oh, we can't go on vacation because we have this. Granted, we always made things work, but it was like, let's just get rid of this debt once and for all.
Oh, wow. That's pretty dope. So being that said, are you completely against, the use of credit card and getting student loans? Like, what is your perspective on those two things?
Those are two good questions. So me personally, I was against credit cards as I was going through the debt process because myself personally, I wasn't good at managing my credit cards. I was very irresponsible. And so I would, not in the, someone made me mad. I was sad. I'm gonna go swipe. And so I didn't like credit cards going through the process. My husband, on the other hand, is very responsible with credit cards and he does use them 100%. And we pay it off monthly. And we use it towards our rewards, right? To help us with reward points for hotels and traveling. So for the longest, I was completely against it. I'm like, if you want to use it, great. I do have a credit card, but I have my own personal credit card, but I don't use it as often as my husband does. In regards to student loans, it was one of those things growing up. I always thought that's, I will always have student loan payments. Like I'm not going to be able to, I'm never going to be able to pay it off. But now on the other side of my debt-free journey, it's like, yes, you can pay it off. It's all about your mindset and deciding, I'm gonna make a goal. I'm gonna work towards that goal, paying it off. I think that I know there's people out there that have lots, 6 figures worth of student loans. I have family members and friends that have 6 figures of student loans. And it's a lot for people, but if you make a plan, you can do it. Do I think the government's going to forgive them? Not sure. I'm not holding my breath on that one. If they do, great. And also, I would also kind of be salty a little bit. Like, man, I paid back my $40,000, but I didn't get mine forgiven. I'll be salty for like 5 seconds, and then after that, I'll get over it. But if they do it and it helps families and individuals with their student loan debt, I think that's great. If they don't, I think people just need to be able to be responsible and pay that loans back if they can.
That's pretty dope. And being that you paid off all your debt, is that including like the mortgage in a house, or
no? So that would just include anything minus the mortgage, right? So again, we followed Financial Peace University's plan and Dave Ramsey's baby step 2 is everything minus the mortgage. So we do have a mortgage. We do have a healthy mortgage. that we pay every month. And hopefully the goal is not to pay it off in 30 years. The goal is to pay it off in 15. So we're 5 years in. So hopefully in the next 10 years, we can take care of that.
Wow. Okay. That's a wonderful, goal to have. So I know, like with David Ramsey, he's against, he believes there's no such thing as good and bad debt. So I want to think, do you hold that same perspective in terms of debt? Like there's no such thing as good and bad debt.
I believe it's a personal decision for every single person, right? His philosophy, he's helped so many people over the years, and he's helped them get out of debt. He's helped them become mortgage free. And so I just believe it's a personal philosophy and what you choose, whether it's good or bad debt.
That's well said, well said. And what were some challenges you had to overcome getting rid of this debt in 59 months? Like how do you go about strategizing and things of that sort to get rid of it? What was the game plan?
One was always constant communication with my husband and I, putting together that plan. At one point, it was just like, okay, we have 20 plus debts, and we're just going to go down the debt snowball method and do as much as we can through our paychecks, our income through our jobs. And then it got to a point where it's like, okay, I want more. Like I want this to go faster. So we decided to side hustle. So I waited tables. He worked at Home Depot. We delivered for DoorDash. We did all kinds of things. He refed basketball games at the YMCA. We did all kinds of things over those, almost 6 years to pay off that debt. It was a lot of sacrifice, and the sacrifice for us was more of time, right? We did a lot of sacrifice of time by working these side hustles, being away from our children on certain nights while we were waiting tables or working at Home Depot. Thankfully, we had family and friends that helped out with our kids when we needed babysitters. Also, our children are 10 years apart, so my oldest was able to babysit as well. If we were just going to be gone for a few hours, like Hayes said, you need to watch your little sister, we'll be back. So we're thankful in those areas, and we're thankful that our family and our friends supported us, and that even that our oldest daughter, who helped with our youngest, she understood what we were doing and why we were doing it. So she's, reaping the benefits of us becoming debt free and helping her as she goes to college in the next couple of years.
That's pretty dope. Could you explain what the snowball method for the people that may not know?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's two methods basically to pay off debt, but you can choose either method, whether it's not one of these two, which is one debt avalanche, and then the debt snowball. Debt snowball is basically listing all your debts from smallest to greatest amounts owed, and then putting as much money as you can on that first debt. So if that first debt is, say it's $500 balance and the minimum payment is $25, you're going to put as much as you can on that first debt and do minimum payments across the board on the rest of your debts. And then you will just continue to snowball payments until that first debt's over. So once you pay off that $500 bill, and again, that minimum payment was $25, and you go to your second debt, that minimum payment is $75. So now you're already at $100 on that second debt, plus anything else that you can continue to throw at that second debt. And just, it's a big snowball effect towards the end. So again, when we hit, debt number 25, 26, our debt snowball was, $1,600, $1,800 after we got rid of card payments and all these credit cards that we were able to put on our student loan payments monthly.
That's pretty dope. And could you talk about how it was like, you guys living, being the fact you guys are spending a lot of money in terms of trying to get rid of debt? Like, how was that living, knowing that all the money gonna go to debt, student loans, credit cards, and things of that sort?
We lived fine. Again, we work on a monthly budget. We do it bi-weekly by our pay periods. And we planned ahead for what we needed and what was going on. Again, we didn't sacrifice a lot of things that people may sacrifice. Oh, they didn't go out to dinner, or we didn't do vacations. We didn't sacrifice in those areas. We just sacrificed, again, in our time. And we made a plan, right? So if we know that we have a trip coming up, whether it's for pleasure or for work or for our daughter's club volleyball tournament, we just planned ahead. And then we knew that month, hey, we're gonna have to take our snowball and we got to use it for club volleyball because we're going out of town and we need to use it for that. So we just kind of worked together as a team, and we always had a compromise when things were coming up, whether we decided to deviate from our plan and focus on, let's pay off the car instead of paying off this credit card because we will have a bigger return on this side. We compromised there. But it was just planning ahead, looking at our budget, seeing what's going on. We always planned ahead. Our budget is always done, 3 months out. Like, this is our plan. And then, of course, as time gets closer, it's like, okay, well, we need to change things around because this has come up, or another activity is coming into the mix, or we're going to go visit family. So always planning ahead is kind of how we just got through the journey. It was a long journey, but it was totally worth it.
No, that makes sense. Being that said it was a long journey, how did your faith, carry you through that, 6 years plus in terms of staying focused and not getting distracted?
Well, I'm a Christian woman, so I kept my faith in God the entire time. The scripture that I stand on is Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all thy heart, and lean not on your own understanding, but he'll set your path straight. And so I just, kept my faith, my heart into Jesus, and I knew that he will sustain me. Yeah, I physically did the job and the side hustles, but he was the one that gave me the strength. He was the one that gave me the faith. He was the one that was like, hey, everything will be taken care of. Just keep. I did the work, but he was there with me alongside. So I didn't quit any of my ministries. I do live a busy life, as many moms do and many people do. So from my job as a mom, my job in the workforce, to serving in ministry at my church, singing in the choir. So I'm at church 3 days out of the week. I didn't drop none of that. I was like, okay, I'm gonna do all of this, but I'm also gonna work this side hustle so I can pay off this debt. I'm going to still tithe to my church. Now, there was a time frame where I was so focused on my debt that I took my tithe away from church. I was like, I can really use this money towards my debt. I knew it was wrong. I didn't feel right in my spirit, and I did it for a couple of months. And then as we went into a new year, I was like, I'm not going to do this again. I'm focusing. So at the top of my budget is my tithe, my mortgage, the rest of my bills. Every single paycheck is how my budget is ran. Tithe is first, and it goes through. So it's been years now that I've been faithfully tithing, and I know I've been blessed from him by, continuing to stay involved in ministry, still keeping my children there, still working really hard at my jobs and doing what I need to do. And I'm thankful for that.
That is great. Because oftentimes, when I, listen to people, share their story, one part of their life is like, suffering. And one thing I like about you is that you kept balance throughout your whole life, whether it was church, whether it was family, which is great. So being that said, how do you recommend or advise people who wants to get rid of a large sum of debt? Like, how would you advise them?
I would advise them to look at the whole picture, right? And don't be nervous of your numbers. So you need to figure out how much debt you are in. You need to identify those numbers. If you don't know what they are, you need to go find every single dollar amount that you owe. Make a plan, whether you choose to do debt snowball, smallest debt to largest debt, or debt avalanche, where you're focusing on the debt with the highest interest. Whatever plan that you want to do, work that plan and don't quit. Start. And if it's a mix of those two plans, or it's, I really want to focus on the debt that has me the angriest, or the smallest debt, whatever that the plan is, choose your plan and work that plan. It can be done. It's all about your mindset. You can't think that I'm always going to have this debt. I'm always going to have a car payment. I'm always going to have student loans. I'm always going to have credit card debt. No, you can pay it off, but you have to just change your mindset and get a plan together. Now, if your job doesn't allow for you to pay off a lot of debt at once, which is totally fine. You don't have to be making $2,500 towards debt payments a month. It's just, you need to be working towards paying off that debt. If you get angry like I did, like I needed additional income, I wanted additional income to pay off debt. So I got side hustles, right? So find that side hustle that you can do that works for you personally, that works for your family. If you're married and have children, whatever it may be, there's so many different options that you can utilize to pay off debt. It's just deciding what you want to do, how you want to attack it, and go for it. And don't give up. And even if you are tired, again, 59 months was a long time and we got tired. Rest, take your break. Don't quit. So when I was tired of waiting tables after 11 months, I was like, okay, I'm cool. I'm gonna quit. Hey, we paid off a lot of debt during this time frame, but I'm gonna quit now and just focus on the kids, the family, our full-time careers. And we're fine. We did that for 3 years. And then 2020 came, 2019. I was like, okay, let's go side hustle again. And, we were at the finish line. We just needed to cross the finish line. So we went back out there. But if I didn't want to work DoorDash or Favor a weekend, like, oh, I'm so tired, I was able just to go online and release my shift and just relax if I wanted to relax and not be on the go.
That's great. That's great advice. That's definitely great advice. So how do you go about budgeting?
For us, my husband and I, we prefer the zero-based budgeting method. I like assigning every item that I need to take care of within my budget, my month, my pay period, a dollar amount. So literally we assign everything from our monthly bills to our gas, to our food, to our eating out, to my eyebrow appointment, my hair appointment, my pedicure appointment, whatever I have going on that I know what's going to take place over the next 15 days, it's assigned on my budget with a dollar amount. And we make sure that, hey, this is the income that's coming in. We assign everything a dollar amount, and at the very bottom, it should say zero. That means we spent every single dollar within our budget. Now, does things come up? Of course. Is every budget perfect? No. But for the most part, that's how we do our budget, and we try to stick to that budget over that pay period.
That's great. That's great. I want to quickly talk about how important was mindset, through this process. You mentioned you was tired during this time. You did take a break. How important is having a strong mindset and a mindset that you could get rid of this step?
I believe it starts with your mindset. I've said it a few times already. Is if you think negatively about the situation, you're not going to want to do it, or you're not going to do it. If you're always thinking again that you're always going to have debt, I mean, even to the point now, it was like, I'm always going to have a mortgage note. I thought I would always have a mortgage note, but seeing other people pay off their mortgages in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, even those I paid it off in 30 years, like they literally paid off a mortgage, like it can be done. Yes, my mortgage is like, wow, that's a lot of money. Like, can I pay that off? But hey, I've already paid off $167,000 worth of debt. So yes, I can pay off a mortgage note over the next 10 to 12, 15 years, whatever we choose to do. But your mindset is where you start. Like, you have to have a positive mindset to get through this journey, whether you have $5,000 in debt, $10,000 in debt, or over 6 figures in debt. Like, you have to have a positive mindset. If you have that, you will definitely be successful paying off debt, investing, whatever it may be, by keeping a positive mindset.
That makes sense. While you guys were knocking off debt, was there any point? Actually, no. To rephrase that, when you guys was knocking out debt, were you guys also investing, or your main focus was just knocking out these debt?
We were investing just through our retirement. So our workplace retirement, we contributed there. There was at one point we did. There was a year where we didn't contribute to our retirements, but again, compromise. My husband really didn't like that. So as we went into the next year of our journey, he was like, hey, we both really need to contribute to our retirement. So we did. So I can't remember how much she contributed at the time, but when I came back on, I started contributing at like 3%. And by this time we were like on the second half of our debt-free journey. So I did 3%. Once we paid off our debt, I cranked it back up. I think I'm at like 8, but thankfully with my job, no matter what, if I chose to contribute to my 403B or not, my job actually put in 3% as well. So no matter what, I was already getting at least 3% when I wasn't giving during that 1 year. And plus they match up to 6%. So now, I'm getting literally 9% off my job just by contributing my 6%, which is great. Very thankful for that.
That's pretty dope. And do you recommend recommend people to focus on a debt completely, or do both at the same time? Both knock out the debt and invest?
I think you should. I mean, if you're comfortable with doing both, absolutely contribute to both, especially your workplace retirement. If your job offers a workplace 401k, 403b, whatever it may be, absolutely, I believe you should contribute to that, at least to the company match. Get that, and then continue to pay on your debt. And even with all the different ways to invest for your future, it depends on what you personally want to work towards, right? So if you're just focused on debt, then focus on your debt, do your workplace retirement. If you want to do both, you absolutely can do both. And maybe you're splitting your debt snowball a month. Maybe this month, a month I have $1,000 is available. Maybe I'm putting 500 to debt and I'm putting 500 to investing, whether it's an IRA or whatever it may be. Is this, again, always a personal decision. I will always say, people need to do what works best for them and their families. But you can absolutely, I believe you can do both, and contributing to retirement, investing, and paying off debt. But I will say, if you do have a lot of high interest debt, then I would say definitely focus on getting rid of that high interest debt first, um, to get before you start investing. But obviously, the earlier you start investing, the more money you make in the long run.
You're 100% right. 100% right. So, what would you say are some key factors that allowed you to achieve these? Besides the side hustle, like what were some key factors in terms of eliminate this big budget, this big debt?
For our household, it was, teamwork between my husband and I, having a strong work ethic, having a plan, really, really helped us. But I always say that our debt-free journey was built on compromise and teamwork. Like we literally had to work together to get this done. And for those who aren't married or in a relationship doing this, and you may be single, it's just having the plan, having the mindset, and the sacrifice. Hey, I may have to do this now for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever it may be, and knowing that at the end outcome, at the end of this journey, it will be worth everything that you went through. I mean, again, it may be hard. You may have a great debt-free journey process, whatever it may be. Just know that it's worth it when it comes down to the end. But for us, it was definitely teamwork and compromise to get through our journey.
That's pretty dope. I want to quickly touch because you mentioned quite often about you and your husband being able to compromise and understand this goal of wanting to knock up the debt. What would you say to someone who is in a relationship, like how they should view money, or just debt in general?
If you are in a relationship, you need to have those money conversations, and to see where each person stands. My husband and I have our own story and our own journey. We were together for 5 years in our early 20s, and we separated for 5 years. We've been married for 7. Those first 5 years were hard, especially around money and those kind of conversations. But once we came to like one accord on talking about how we want to run finances, what we want to focus on, what our goals are, long term, short term, things got better. I mean, we're still married. Do we argue over money like we did in our early 20s? No, but do we have disagreements sometimes on what we want to do or what goal we want to focus on now? Yeah, I mean, everyone has their own personal goals. We have our marriage goals, our own individual goals as well. But for those who are dating, engaged, getting ready to get married, definitely have those money conversations, because those are some really in-depth conversations you need to know about your spouse, your boyfriend, as you combine finances. Do you want to combine finances? Do you want to be separate? What's going to work best for you? Obviously, being in a marriage, it's best to have all the income come into one bucket, and then you can separate it out after bills are paid, whatever you want to do. But again, I will always say, do what works best for you and your household.
That's great. So what would you advise some questions people should ask during this courting/dating period, in terms of finance, and money?
I would ask, do you have debt? Do you know how much debt do you have? Do you know what your income is? Some people are like, oh, I don't know what my salary is. Like, you should know these kind of things. Do you have insurance? Do you know what kind of insurance do you have? Whether it's medical, vision, dental, life insurance. Now, again, while you're dating, some of these may be too in depth, but you should definitely know if people are in debt, living outside of their income, right? Are they just blowing their money off? Like, what are their money habits? Are they, eating their money like crazy, or they're spending their money to show off for the world? But yeah, they're having to call mom or ask someone to borrow money because they're trying to show out for other people.
No, that's pretty great advice. One of the reasons most people get divorced is because of finance and lack of understanding how to manage their finance. Being this fact that you guys don't have any debt, how do you go about spending your money? Is it still in a tight budget, or you guys are more loose with the budget now there's no debt?
No, we still follow a budget. And again, because we run on a zero-based budget, we budget in for the things that we want. My husband loves golfing, and so he's going to golf when he feels like golfing, and he has it in his budget. He has it as our fund money. Like, hey, this is my fund money, and this is what I'm going to do. So no, we're not strict on our budgeting. We just plan for what we want to do, and we did that during the debt-free journey as well. Again, we didn't cut out things that we enjoyed. We learned if cutting out the things that we enjoyed, it would make the process even harder, and we would dread the process and wouldn't want to do the process. So we kept things that we wanted to do during the journey and even after the journey. Now, are we blowing money off left and right? No. But we do what we enjoy, and we make sure it's in the budget and it's accounted for.
Great. I want to quickly touch, how important, is like literally, because I know you mentioned you're in a budget, you include your hair, your nails, your husband, golf, and how important is to like knit down every single thing, your day to day in the budget.
So my husband is a numbers guy. So he tracks everything, from everything that's spent on his side. I'm not a tracking person, right? So the budget goes out. I know for this pay period, I have $220 until the next pay period as my fund money. And that's my budget for those next 15 days. And that's what I need to use. If I don't use all of it, great. If I use all of it and I'm like screeching into the next pay period with $5 in my account, I'm fine because the money was accounted for and I spent it on the things that I wanted. So yeah, he has the whole spreadsheet tracking every single dollar that's spent. That's not me, and that's just my style. So right, so we do what works best for each other.
That's great. That's great. Can you talk about your community, Positive B, and what led you to start that community?
Yeah, so growing up, I've always wanted to have the Brandyn Moore show, and that I was going to be the next Oprah. That was my goal when I was 10 years old, right? So as we're coming through the pandemic and just looking at different ways, and especially after we became debt free, I wanted to, how can I still be an encourager, someone to share not only my personal story, but encourage people to become debt free, to pay off their debt, to live a life on their own terms, kind of deal. So I decided to create Positively Be, which was a space where I can talk about faith, family, and finances. So the goal is always to produce at least 2 blogs a month. I have not been very great at that for 2021. But we just launched earlier this year in February. So the goal is, again, to kind of share my story, personal stories, other people's stories throughout this blog to encourage people to become debt-free, to work together as a family, and to, follow your faith and whatever faith that may be. Again, I'm a Christian, and so most of my perspective is from the Christian mindset. But I know that God wants more for us and will provide for us. And I just wanted to be a positive voice in the community and the world to share.
That's pretty dope. That's pretty dope. And where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
In the next 5 years, I see myself supporting my oldest daughter. Hopefully, prayerfully, she will be playing college volleyball somewhere. So checking her out in college and watching her continue to grow. Being at home with my youngest daughter as she will be, getting older in elementary school years, traveling and just sharing about, hopefully Positively Be. The goal is to now not only a blog, but go into video format as well. So producing at least one weekly show on a video format, again, talking about budgeting and debt and living that Positively Be life. And hopefully in my career, excelling in my career, either where I'm currently at or maybe somewhere else. I'm very big on giving back to my community, serving my community, whether it's serving in the church, serving with nonprofits, and helping others. So I will definitely see myself continuing to do that here in San Antonio.
That is great. That is great. I definitely want to say thank you for your time. It was definitely a pleasure to learn about your story and your journey into eliminate $137,000 in 59 months. I want you to leave us with a closing word for somebody who may be struggling with debt and wants to get rid of it and wants to be on the other side like you are. How would what would your word of wisdom be for them?
It may sound cliche, but my words of wisdom will be, you got this. You can do it. Whatever you set your mind to, you can do it. My husband's always been ones like, Brandyn, once you set your mind, like you're like full steam ahead and going. And you can do the same thing. Get your plan together, get your accountability partner, whether it's a spouse, a friend, a family member, whether it needs to be me, reach out to me on Instagram. I can be your accountability partner to get you through that process. But stop waiting for the next best time. Like, oh, I need to wait till I get another job, till I make more money, till I get a side hustle. No, you can start right now, and just get going. Once you get started and you start seeing that progress, that momentum is going to keep going and you're going to finish it. And it can be done. Don't look at the timeline. Don't look at, oh, it's going to take me this many years, this many months. Don't worry about that. Just look at the debt that you need to attack and focus on, and you can do it.
That's good. That's good. And where can people find you to stay in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on Instagram. I am Brandyn Rodriguez at debt_free_2020, as well as you can follow along on the blog at www.positivelybe.com.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms.Brandyn Rodriguez. And like many of you guys already know, I do have a study guide which show you how you can get started in the stock market completely for free, and you can get it on my website, wealthinchristbrand.com, which is a step-by-step study guide, show you all the different things on how to look at stocks, pick stocks, think of the future and plan for retirement. And again, thank you again, Ms.Brandyn Rodriguez, for coming on this platform. And hope those who are listening, like always, take action. Don't only listen to this, but actually take action. Go back and do something with information. And see you guys next week.